What is up, guys? Today we're going to talk about getting banged out in prison. I'm just going to talk about a few instances of people getting knocked out whilst I was in jail. Because prison, you might hear people say prison is a holiday camp. One I always hear is prison is Butlins, and it's just not. People that say that are just total losers. I suppose, if you've got no friends, if you've got no house, got no responsibilities, then I suppose prison might feel like Butlins. But I guarantee you, people that say that, it's just bravado. They're just trying to look tough. And I guarantee you, while they were in there, they'd have been whinging and moaning. Oh, I can't wait to get out. Oh, it's shit in here. Oh, I can't wait to get out. It's rubbish here. But then when they get out, I had it on lockdown on there. It's easy. And I've been there. When I was younger, when I first got locked up. When I got out, I thought I was 10 men. I'd been doing a few push-ups in my cell, and I was telling everyone, it's easy in there. But it's all just bravado. I cringe now when I think back. But yeah, prison is a violent place. It's depressing, it's boring, and depending on what prison you're in, there's like the level of violence. The prison I'm talking about is Doncaster back in the 90s, when it was like a triple cat A secure prison. It had just opened. It was a very violent place. I'm not going to say there was violence every single day, but there was probably like 2 or 3 serious incidents like every week. There was violence all over. And for someone like me, the first time I got locked up, I wasn't around violence on the out. I was into the rave scene. I was a class clown, and I wasn't around violence. So when I first got to prison, it was brutal. Our first prison sentence was 8 months, and I got it for occupied dwelling, even though it wasn't an occupied dwelling. But back then, if you broke the law, you went to prison. It's not like it is now, where you can beat someone to death and you only get 2 years in prison. Back then, if you broke the law, you went to jail. And I nicked a strimmer or something out of somebody's shed, and because the shed was attached to the side of the house, they did me for an occupied dwelling, and I got 8 months in prison. And I didn't know the ropes, because what happens is when you're up in court, if you're in front of the magistrates, your solicitor will say his bit, the prosecutor will say their bit, and then they'll retire. And they'll say, right, we're just going to retire. They'll go in the back for like 20 minutes. And if you go into prison, that's when they phone the Group 4. Then the Group 4 come in the back of the court, and then the magistrates will come back in, and then they'll say, take him down. And that's when you know you're going to prison, when the Group 4 come into the back of the room. And when I first got there, I'd not even got into the prison hardly. I was still in reception, and there was a kid from Donnie, and he'd been throwing needles, dirty needles, and just chucking them in kids' playgrounds. That's what the rumour was. So this kid's just got knocked out, bang. He was laid out, everybody was stamping on him, and then the screws just came and just dragged him out. And that was my first, example of how bad the violence is in prison. And then they took me up onto the wing, and as we were going onto the wing, they was carrying a black dude out that's had his face burnt with red hot water, and I was, fucking hell, this is bad. I don't know what it's like now, if it's still that violent, but the last time I was there, I got tested the first day, because but I knew the ropes by this time. I knew how to act, because you have to stand up for yourself. And I'd just come on the wing, and usually when a new kid comes on, the local bully boys will go in and see if he's got drugs. Like, have you got any gear? Have you brought out in from the street? And they came in my cell, and I says, mate, I'm not interested in drugs. Drugs got me in here. I don't want to do any while I'm in here. But I had a Versace towel, because I knew I was going to prison, so I packed a few bits. And they've come in, trying to strong arm me. And one of them's picked my towel up and chucked it over his shoulder. And then when they'd finished talking, he tried walking out. And I jumped up. I said, "Here, what are you doing?" Snatched it back. And that's what you have to do. Whereas if I'd have not known how to handle myself, I could have just sat back. He would have took that. And then, he could have come back later and took some more. And then you end up everybody taking off you. So you have to stand up for yourself, and that's what I did, and it didn't bother me anymore. But violence is always there. It's always in the back. It's always in the air. It can kick off at any moment. I remember when I was on the phone and a kid from Donnie was arguing with some dude, and I just heard a smash, and then the usual squeaky trainers on the floor noise. And I looked round, and there was a kid from Dunscroft. He had a pot cup, and he'd put it in a sock. I swung it around and bashed this kid with it, and that's what the smashing noise was. And then this sort of stuff happens all the time in prison. I remember one of my mates, we're not like good mates, but whilst I was in prison, we used to be mates. A kid called Rolo from Donnie, and Rolo was a really funny guy. He was a good character. You need people like that in prison. And I remember we was all sat at the table once, and there was me, Rolo, a couple other kids, and a Donnie lad, and he was a real proper ugly cunt. And we were sat there, and there was bringing some new guys on the wing from reception, and this ugly kid looked over. He says, "Oh, they're bringing some new heads on wing." And Rolo, quick as a whip, he says, "Oh, you better go and get one then, you ugly cunt." I always remember that. It made me chuckle. But yeah, Rolo had some beef with some guy. I can't remember his name. I seem to think he was Wacker from Sheffield or something like that. I think he had blonde hair. I can't remember. But he had a bit of beef with Rolo, and Rolo can really fight. He might not go around portraying the image of a tough guy, but he can really fight. And this Wacker guy, he's gone. I saw him walking up to his cell, and I thought to myself, there's something going to happen here. Because when you fight in prison, it's not like on the street. You have to go into a cell and lock the door behind you, so you're just locked in there with whoever you're having a fight with. I've only ever had one fight in prison, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Wacker's gone into his cell, locked the door, and I've nudged a couple of lads. I'm like, oh, something might be happening here. And anyway, Wacker's gone in, locked the door, and then 20 seconds later, the door's open and Rolo's come out, dragged him out. So he's gone in there to beat Rolo up. He's gone in, locked the door, and he's got beat up himself. Rolo just dragged him out. So yeah, it is scary though, fighting in a locked cell with someone, because if you get knocked out, you could get stamped out, you could get killed in there. And I remember the one time I had a fight, it was a kid from Rotherham, and he was... Then I learned an important lesson this day, because he was only a little dude. He had bald head. It looked a bit like Elmer Fudd. And we were just having a laugh, having a bit of back and forth. And I went like that, as if to slap him, just for a laugh. I'd be like, shut up, you dick. And I don't know why, in 10 seconds it escalated. And all his mates were saying, oh, you're going to let him get away with that? And it felt like everybody was looking at me. And he says, oh, well, let's go in that cell and sort it out. And I was like, fuck. I didn't want to, but everybody was looking at me. So I felt like I've got to. Because sometimes you do. You have to fight whether you want to or not. And I remember going to this cell. And I was thinking, it's going to be easy, this. Light work, because he's only small. And then we got in the cell, and fucking hell, he was strong as an ox, I couldn't, he was too strong. And I tried fighting back, but he overpowered me, dumped me on my head and choked me out, and it was over like that. But the main thing was I went in the cell, and tried, at least I tried. If I'd have not gone in the cell, everyone would think, he's a knobhead, and again, people take advantage. But yeah, that's just a couple times people getting banged out. There was another one as well. I remember a kid, I think he was from Sheffield, and he was a big, strong dude, big, massive chin on him, and he was walking round the wing, and he'd only just come on, but he was taxing people on the wing. And it was always the smaller, weaker people. He was just going in the cell and just taking what he wanted. And then he'd be shouting, if anyone's got a problem, let's get in showers. Because obviously he could have a go. And at first, we weren't that bothered because he wasn't bothering us, so just leave him to it. But then he ended up taxing some skinny, weak kid from Donnie. And the kids come in the TV room and says, he just fucking nicked my backy off me. So that's when everyone got involved and right, we've got to get him off. And what happened was John T. Campbell, he was the main dude. I can't remember who else were there. And waited, it says we'll get him when he's in the TV room. So he waited till he was on his own in the TV room. And there's about 8 of us there. I didn't do out, I was just there. And Johnny's like, he's like stood up as if to yawn. He went, bang, smashed him clean up his chair. And everybody just jumped on him and stamped him out. And the screws came and carried him up. And that was the end of him. But yeah, that's just a few times people got banged out in prison. There's way more than that. But we're at the 10-minute mark. So I don't want to bore everyone. But yeah, that's just a few examples. Prison is crap. Prison is boring. It's violent. And depending on what prison you're in, you know, some prisons are worse than others. But yeah, you want to stay away from prison. It's crap. But anyway, if you like the video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, Nerf de Pop.